Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Schachter, founder and CEO of UpdateAI and host of Unchurned. Joining me today is Eduarda Camacho, Chief Customer Officer of BMC. BMC is a multinational IT services and consulting company. Eduarda is going to tell us a little bit more about exactly what types of services BMC offers, but they're huge. They have 6,000 employees across the world, reported over $2 billion in revenues in 2021. And Eduarda, it's an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you, Josh. It's a pleasure being here and coming to you from sunny Lisbon. It's great to be here and looking forward for a great conversation.
Well, I am jealous right off the bat because I am in rainy New York, so sunny Lisbon sounds really nice to me. Okay, so I did a pretty mediocre job at introducing a very well-established and successful company up front there, BMC. And so I would like your help in this. So we all know that the name brand BMC, we know it's a large, well-established company, but what exactly do you guys do?
So think about, BMC, our mantra, our vision is really to help some of the biggest companies in the world. Most of the BMC customers are really, Fortune 500 type customers across banks and finance and many other sectors, really transform into what we call an autonomous digital enterprise. And what is that? Is really leverage the power of technology to transform, everything you do in the company with a few key objectives in mind. If you do this successfully, and obviously the IT spectrum is pretty broad, if you are able to leverage technology and deliver on a better customer experience for your customers, you really leverage data and analytics everywhere to take the right decisions and evolve your business model. So you have those insights you can put into action, and you have the agility you need to adapt to different circumstances in the market and your competitive landscape. That means you've been able to achieve a certain state where technology has helped you as a company be able to do that, be better in terms of delivering services and products to your customers, leverage data and analytics and insights in a better way, and pivot when you have to pivot, have that agility. And it's really interesting to see BMC doing that, which is a company that is over 40 years old and has all of that fantastic heritage, but has been able to really invest in the innovation so you can, come along and help our customers in that autonomous digital enterprise journey. So a lot of the customers that I go and see, right, it's very interesting how everyone talks about the same of the need of agility, the need of not letting systems and processes get in the way of delivering new services to your customers. So we're pretty much at the core of all of that, which is a great place to be.
So you're turning large companies, Fortune 100 companies, 500 companies, into autonomous digital enterprises. So you're replacing humans with bots. Did I get that right?
We are allowing the humans to spend their time doing the stuff that we all like to do, right? Instead of, doing unnecessary work that can be automated. Isn't that what we all want? To spend our time in a better way.
We want to eliminate the busy work.
We want the busy work to go away. We want the non-creative work to go away. We want to be able to do more with the same, right? So that's what we are helping companies to do and to innovate, which is pretty important.
So you're supporting digital transformation, it sounds like, in many ways, right? Yes. You're helping to build that infrastructure and with that, making sure that all the plumbing is there, all the metrics are set up, and there's that kind of control tower of change management, it sounds like, is the main.
You said it very well, Josh.
So that sounds like customer relationships in your world are really important. You've got a lot of juggling parts in changing an organization and in transforming an organization and making it autonomously digital, as we say. So tell us a little bit about what that looks like in the world of BMC. Like, you're the chief customer officer. Mm-hmm. What does your org look like?
Sure. So I joined BMC actually not so long ago. So it's now I'm still counting in month 13, going to 14th. And, I really have, what traditional companies would call all of the customer service or post-sales function. So think about all of the type of services, implementation, running the applications, running the infrastructure, education, all of those services. Also, customer support, which is really interesting. Also, how that evolves, as the business models evolve, and we move to SaaS. A 40-year-old company coming from supporting customers on premises mostly, and the customer success management, and very important also, an organization focused on transforming the customer experience, which is a lot of where the work across 6,000, almost 6,500 employees at BMC, which is, how do you get 6,500 people to do something different and better every day to improve the experience that your customers have with you. So that's the piece of the customer experience. So obviously, biggest stakeholders, like in any chief customer officer role, the product organizations, the sales organizations. And then obviously, I see myself as the advocate for our customers and being, ultimately their voice within BMC as for what their experience is, what they need, what they're struggling with, what's going well, and really provide that voice in a structured way, but and I think this is very important for me, in a way that it resonates, right? It's not just a logo, or it's not just some amorphous entity. It's like real people at our customers that are doing something very important with our technology. And how do you bring that voice back to the company?
You're a numbers person. I'm a numbers person, kind of. Give me some numbers. So you got over 6,000 people at the company, over $2 billion in revenues last year. Mm-hmm. You own post sales effectively in many ways, it sounds like.
Yeah. My org is 1,250 people. So I would say product, obviously, and then the go-to-market organization and my organization are the three biggest organizations. And that my organization is pretty split between the services team, obviously, as running a P&L, the support team, the customer success management team. Support and services are obviously the largest organizations, especially also because it's complex enterprise software. So it's very normal that it becomes a bigger part of the organization versus the newer parts, such as customer success management or experience. So we're talking, 450 each of those two big organizations, and then smaller, 150 to 200 people for the other two organizations. So that's.
And about how many customers are you guys supporting within?
So we support 3,000 customers approximately worldwide, of which, again, a big majority of the Fortune 100, Fortune 500, and really around banking, finance, retail, a lot of different types of organizations that we support.
So about 3,000 accounts, but within that, a lot of customers, a lot of stakeholders, I'm sure. Yeah, and it sounds like a lot of different types of stakeholders. Yeah. Which I'm sure has its challenges and nuances.
Telcos, many different types of companies. Yes.
Different verticals. Yeah. Okay. So to say the least, it's a very prestigious role that you have. And I know you're just there a little bit over a year. You were at PTC for almost 25 years, 24 years. And I'm wondering why you didn't stay for 25 to get like the Rolex
just
or whatever.
To get the watch.
Yeah, to get the watch, right? But we could save that for a separate time. So you have a role that many on this, listening to this podcast, are aspiring for. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to step back. The name of the show is Unchurned because we want to go raw. We want to get the real you. So I want to try to get into that now, and then we'll go into some more of the blocking and tackling of post-sales experiences. Tell us your story. That's a broad question, but what parts of your life leading up to where you are today have defined you in a really meaningful way that add up to your story?
So let's start where I am now. So I grew up here in Lisbon, and when I was growing up, when I was studying, I really never even thought about technology. It's interesting, in the 80s, it just especially also in a country like Portugal, may be different from the US, right? That's just was not like the number one thing people would think about. And I wanted to be a journalist or a writer, and I was like, I had a romantic view of what that would look like. But anyway, life happens, and I ended up getting into a company as an internship where I was fortunate to learn technology and learn how to design molds and toolings.
Sorry, Eduarda, I'm gonna stop you for a second.
Okay.
I'm going to stop you for a second. You wanted to be a journalist and a writer, but life happens. That sounds like the interesting part. So what did you want to write? And what happened that then, as they say today, pivoted you into the corporate world?
Yeah. So
you just yada, yada, yada. If you're a Seinfeld fan like I am, you yada, 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 the most interesting part.
Okay. So I want yada, yada, yada. So I wanted to be a journalist and I wanted to be a writer. So I wanted to go and study communication science to get there. And the last year of high school, I actually was doing high school in the evenings, and I got into this company.
Wait, why were you doing high school? You're passing over the interesting parts. Yeah, why did you go to high school in the evenings?
That was just a normal thing you did, like the last year of the high school. Maybe the US is different, but here it was very normal that your last year of high school, which is the preparation for university or college, you actually do it in the evenings, and supposedly you do something, meaningful during the day, to get you prepared for university. So my doing something useful was getting into this internship that I found in a local employment office that I had no idea what I was going to get into. And basically it was like a manufacturing company that was close to my home. And they produced like electrical appliances, which has nothing to do with journalism or anything else, but gave me some money and just got me there. So in that internship, it was like 4 hours you had like to learn something. So you had like classes within the company, and then 4 hours you did some work. And I was lucky that my, the mentor that was taking care of me as an intern actually decided that I was going to learn computers and everything from a command line to how you did everything. And they were very technology advanced in the sector of using 3D CAD tools to create designs of molds and tooling to produce the plastic and the metal part. So from having never used a computer, I started learning how to use possibly the most advanced technology there was in terms of workstations, to design very complex 3D CAD tools and models. And learning how manufacturing processes work. I was 18 at the time, working in a place full of older people that work their whole lives in manufacturing processes, and just it was such a great learning experience. I learned the technology, I learned how to work in a corporate environment, I worked how to manufacturing processes work, and then I ended up doing that and studying and getting into the university. But I did university while I was still working in that company because I decided I liked it and I was not going to stop. So, my university days were a little different from what most normal people university days were, right? I was doing the classes, as I could. I was going after work. So I actually studied my communication science career while I was working in this company. And, it took me a little longer to get to the study and get my degree, but I did it. So I really, for 5 years, I did both. I was working there and I was doing my communication science studies. And then I got into journalism in the Portuguese version of Fortune magazine. I'm sure that everyone still knows Fortune magazine. And what's really interesting is obviously my early days as freelancer of working at Fortune magazine were not the romantic version of journalism that I had in mind that it would be journalism. No. So one day,
that first job never is.
Yeah, that first job never is, right? So I was writing about stuff that it wasn't really that romantic, and I just got so much into, the working environment. And one day, a PTC sales rep calls my company. I knew him from some demos, and literally the person tells me, "Hey, we are hiring somebody for joining our pre-sales team in Porto, which is about 200 miles north from Lisbon. Would you happen to know somebody?" And it literally took me about half a second, less than that, to say, yes, me. And that's really how I got into the technology world. They hired me because I knew how to use technology to design molding tooling, honestly. But that was it. That's how life happened.
This was your side job that you had done through school, that you were still had it on the side while you were just getting into journalism. You answered the phone for like a cold call. Am I getting this correct?
I answered the phone from a sales rep that was from PTC. And the reason he called me is because he had been to my company doing some demos. We were using a competitive software to design, molds. And so he knew me, right? So actually, now that you're I'm thinking about it, I called him because I wanted to give him a lead of a company that needed to buy some CAD tool. So I called him, and then he said, "Oh, thanks for the lead. Do you know somebody?" And I said, yes. That was it.
And that's it. And then you were there for 24 years, almost enough to get the watch.
24 years, yes.
Yeah. And you never looked back and made the switch over a little over a year ago to BMC.
I did a few more of those changes, during my PTC career. Like somebody asked me if I would go to Japan and run Asia, and I said yes, and then talked about it at home, things like that. So I've been a bit impulsive in some of the decisions that have
Where do you think that comes
driven me. I don't know. I think my mother is exactly like me, so I guess I'm exactly like her. So that's where I learned it. If we think something, if it feels right, I'm very intuitive, very, very, very intuitive. I think we both say that we have a little bit of witch, like we know what people are thinking, and so intuition's pretty high. So when something like this happens, I think I know it's the right thing, and I don't think about it too much. So
great. Well,
it has served me well. So I don't have a lot of regrets because of my intuition-based decision-making process.
Sounds like it. Okay. All right. So let's turn the conversation to post-sales engagements, customer experience, customer success. You and I sat down during Gainsight's Pulse a few months ago, and we were talking a little bit about this, and we were talking about the topic. This was right after you on stage with the legendary, and by the way, upcoming guest on our podcast, Jeffrey Moore.
Nice.
He's like my business idol. Thank you. But we were talking about humanizing your customer success approach. Mm-hmm. And I found this a really interesting topic, just out of personal interest, quite frankly, that, let's say, let me phrase it like this. How does empathy play a role in customer experience at BMC and the way that you've set the org up?
In a few, I think in a few areas. First of all, I think one of the biggest characteristics of a successful customer-facing individual, and I would extend that not just to the CS function, but others, is the ability to truly listen and really understand, put yourself in the other person's shoes and really listen. I would say that's valid for many things in life, but that's specifically valid for customer facing and especially for customer success. So for me, the ability to understand the individual that you're working with at your customers, what they're striving for, what's their challenges. At the end, making your customers successful is not an abstract thing. It's not, making UpdateAI, I'm just going to use your company as successful. It's about making Josh successful, right, in what you define as success. So one of the big things that I did at PTC, but BMC was actually already in that path, and we reinforced it, is humanizing that customer, right? Stop talking about customers as logos and really start talking about customers as people, right? Not just also the generic personas, but putting the faces, putting the names, and then also working a lot on the emotional intelligence piece, of which listening is just one. So we created, we use like LinkedIn Learning and other ways of creating learning paths for our employees to go through and work through their emotional intelligence skills. Really gave space to the people to come and tell customer stories in all of our events, like all hands meetings, my monthly reviews, communications out to the whole company. So for me, that is a big part of it, because I think in the business, we are all number people, but at the end of the day, numbers are a consequence of something else, right? Numbers are a consequence of, in this case, understanding the needs and being able to deliver on the needs to make people with real names at our customers successful. So it's maybe a little bit of, a lot of people think of it maybe as that's kind of too soft, or it's not, it's fluffy, it's touchy-feely, but it's not. I mean, it's proven also in the business, like if you can deliver to the needs of the concrete people at your customers, you're gonna be much more successful also from a financial point of view. So for me, that is why this humanization or putting the human face and putting like the real stories. You were talking about stories. You were asking me to tell one story. Well, everyone at our customers, doesn't matter in which company they work for, they have real stories, right? And I think that's the difference. Like you have, especially for the CS function, get a little bit outside of, obviously we have to drive for our KPIs, drive for results, but it's a little bit of a different horizon, right? Especially as you compare with the go-to-market functions, where you have to step back and be able to put that in the context of the needs, the objectives, and the definition of success of the people you work with every day. So that's my view of CS.
It's really interesting to me though, because okay, at my level as a startup, I can put a name to every face, and every customer, every individual is incredibly meaningful to me. Mm-hmm. But you're working at an org that has 3,000 customers and probably, mm-hmm. and these sound like big transformation projects. So probably 50 stakeholders, 100 stakeholders, 1,000, I don't know, right? But a lot of stakeholders on each one at varying levels. So how do you do that? Like systematically, how do you draw out personalization, what success is to each individual, but do that at scale?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, obviously we have like everyone, I think, that is in a company like BMC, you have different approaches to your more, strategic customers than to the rest. But we have,
sure,
a combination of technology and of human, very intense playbooks and coverage, right, for the top 50 of our customers. And they're pretty complex customers, right? So you may actually end up having, 10 of the stakeholders that you really focus on, and then have, for example, a customer success executive, and then you have specialized, more focused on individual product people that like they focus more on the operators that run a certain one of our products. And it's a combination of those two things. Like one you run more at the business sponsorship level, and the other one runs at the specialization level. And then obviously complement that with all of the personalization that technology can bring in terms of account-based marketing, in terms of digital campaigns. And I don't think the fact that you have 3,000 or 30,000 should take away from how you engage, having that feeling of being personalized. But again, it's harder to do when you are not in a pure SaaS environment. And so in BMC, it's a very mixed, right, of customers that are still, with purely on-premises software and customers that are on the SaaS version of our platform. And when you have, this combination, BMC is mostly on the larger enterprise scale, right? But, we also have smaller companies that are equally important, and, we want to make them equally successful. But you have to try to balance your approach with those different tiers, like I'm sure many other companies do, right? But it's a most of a high touch model as compared to other companies that can do a more digital touch.
Yeah. So it's setting that expectation and the framework of high touch. It sounds like you set up the proper formation of roles within your org to be able to segment out and touch each of the different types of stakeholders at your customer accounts. It's not just one person as an umbrella talking to
it's not just one person, right? Because if you
right.
just do that, then you stop having consistency, and it's also very hard to really go to the place where you can have an impact, right? Because these are pretty complex organizations.
And you mentioned account-based marketing and some of the tooling that you use to help scale that personalization. Can you reference anything specifically that some of these systems that you've put in place, the technology stack that you put in place to help scale that personalization?
Well, a combination of what we have in Gainsight, in Eloqua, other technology that the teams are using to really drive both the digital and the account-based marketing. I would say those are likely the two biggest ones, and then there's some other stuff that is getting put in place both by the go-to-market teams as well as the customer success team, but those would be the two big ones. I don't think we are, and I don't want to misrepresent it, I don't think we are yet mature as, in PTC was similar, right? Because when you have these companies that have been around for so long and have this complexity of portfolio and the complexity of the customer base, the transformation where you have the human and the digital in parallel, it's actually pretty hard to do because you don't have the instrumentation of the product done by default, and you have the complexities of the data and the systems that become a little stale, right? For 20, 30, 40 years. So it's an ongoing process. I don't want to represent us also of having it figured it out. But as I said at Pulse when I was talking with Jeffrey Moore, I think, my advice for anyone listening would be don't let that block you either, right? It's not perfect, but you can make an impact.
Yeah. So let's move on, Eduarda, and talk about customer experience and the relationship that it has with product. I'm myself a former product owner, product manager, and so this is something that's pretty sacred to me as well. So what does that relationship look like at BMC between customer experience and product experience, product management?
It's interesting because I had a very different, my own personal experience, at PTC and then coming into BMC. And I think part of that is just my journey, right? So I was at PTC for 24 years, but only the last 4 in the corporate headquarters, which is, very much where all of the product and all of the decisions get done, right? And where a lot of the organization is. And I found it very interesting coming into BMC, how close and I would say relatively easy it was to establish the relationship between, myself and the CPO, and really at 2 or 3 different levels of the organization. Really with a partnership that I find super healthy, and was very interesting also to get some of the framework from Jeffrey Moore around, product and CS coming together. And I would say at different levels, there's the feedback, or I would say the operating rhythm, if you want to call it like that, where you have the product managers or the engineering leads on weekly calls with my CSM leads or my support leads or professional services to really review what is happening in customers, in the onboarding, in the project, what's the feedback. Here's the 3 main issues that we have found, with this type of product in this customer base. That operating rhythm, that willingness to listen, going back to the listening, right, and then acting on it, is really there. So, that's, for me, that's a great start. And then technology and process help, meaning, we have implemented or in the process of rolling out, the gain side, PX side, we have it, the CX side of it. So how those two start actually bringing more of the, scale, visibility to what's really happening in the install base. Obviously, that allows for that feedback loop to happen more at scale, right? Not just human based.
Can you go dive a little deeper into that? Like, exactly what is that? What is that highlighting? What is that showcasing? That platform for you?
So for us, remember again, BMC coming from a lot from on-premises. Now with instrumentation of some of the newer SaaS releases and instrumentation of some of the products, we start really getting into what, a dashboard, telling you what kind of features, right, or how is a customer using certain features in the different products. We already have, how much of the product they're using. Some, one is more feature usage, another one is license usage. So now we were able to bring all of that together with, the typical, the health scores, the success plans. So, you can paint a much better picture of really the health of the adoption and the state of the adoption of a certain product for our customer base. And obviously start getting into the playbooks that you normally would do, right, in a more pure SaaS company around readiness for expansion and what we need to get into the next release and stuff of that nature. So technology there for sure is it's starting to play its role. It started with people wanting to work together and just willing to listen, organizing so that actually that feedback loop happens in a structured way. Because I've seen it in my past and I've seen it here too. When doesn't happen in a structured way, what happens is, whoever is screaming the loudest, right? Because the customers are having issues or you want to drive something, is the one that gets listened to.
What does that look like? What does a non-structured way look like first?
A non-structured is, we have 2 escalations of this customer, and you need to go fix this, and this in the product because we have customer XYZ that is screaming. Or typically is, hey, we have 3 deals in the pipeline for these customers, and we need this functionality, or we need this product available in this data center because we have 3 deals in the pipeline. That's typically what a non-structured feedback looks like, which is escalation-based or transaction-based. Not, okay, we just look at what happened this month. We have this amount of customers using this newest release. This is what we learned through the onboarding process. This is what we learned through, the architects in PS doing, the work with the customer on validating the configurations. This is what we learned from the CSM team. Here's I think Jeffrey Moore calls it stack ranked, right? Here's the 5, the 3 things that, we need you to go work on as in the next release of the product, or the other way around, right? The product team, hey, this is what we are working with. Let's work together in building the IP, right? The services that it's going to be required to go and really deploy this, and that is ready before you actually, go to the customers. So for me, that's the difference between unstructured and structured is you get to the most systemic topics, being things you want to drive or reacting to some things that need to get fixed, but you don't do it based on an escalation or a transactional need. You actually are able to prioritize because you have enough data, enough insights that help you prioritize, right? And then you have the operating rhythm to reinforce that, and and it just doesn't get lost in the process. If that
and what ceremonies do you guys have? What meetings do you actually have between CX and products?
There's weekly meetings on each of the product lines, each of the 3 main product lines, where you have the engineering lead, the product managers, and the leads of the CS functions, support, services, and CSM. So those are weekly. We have monthly reviews with the CPO and myself with our directs in terms of what we have seen. We have the voice of the customer readouts twice a quarter, where you actually go through the, not just the numbers, but also the, the commentary, and really review how that is related to some of the things we have already observed. We are actually putting together, and I had it at PTC. We don't have it yet at BMC, but we are putting together what we call a role that we call a journey lead. That is actually somebody that owns the experience for that product. For that subset of customers that have that product, that really helps identify across the whole life cycle, where's the areas of gaps, right, or the areas that can drive additional success for customers, and helps everyone prioritize. What I've seen is, like, over time, it's people either you have a very detailed view of one step of the journey, or you have a very functional view, but actually bringing all of that together in an end-to-end customer journey, if you want, and prioritizing what needs to get done.
So you have a dedicated role to that. You have a dedicated role to taking all the feedback across all these discrete parts of the journey and putting it together into a full visualization, if you will.
I ambition to get that done as soon as I can. I had it in PTC. I'm creating it in BMC because it was proven successful, and I think it's going to be proven successful here. And I've seen others in the industry starting to have that dedicated role, obviously at a certain scale, right? It depends on the size. We are complex enough that that role for each of the product lines is necessary.
Sounds like it. Sounds like a great role. Eduarda, thank you so much. We're at time here. I want to let you go. I want to wish you the best rest of your trip in Lisbon.
Thank you.
This was a great conversation. I'm sure our listeners really enjoyed listening to how you went from journalism to the executive boardroom.
There you go.
Major company.
Very nice talking to you, Josh. And thank you. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.